Hello and welcome to this training about a painting by Sandro Botticelli called The Birth of Venus. We will start with a video. And what if Botticelli's Birth of Venus is not what we think? What if behind this famous mythological scene there is a Christian interpretation? That's what we will discover in this unprecedented analysis between art, symbolism, and spirituality. Chapter 1 Venus or Mary, Sandro Botticelli, a convinced Christian, reverses here the process of Leonardo da Vinci. Where Leonardo hides pagan myths in the Bible, Botticelli does the opposite. He presents a pagan myth to better conceal a biblical story. The figure of Venus is actually the Virgin Mary. She is born from the divine wave, carried by the breath of God. The small white waves, shaped like a V, represent the Holy Spirit. Swirling roses announce her arrival, separating the time of Adam from that of Christ. Chapter 2 The Baptism and the Presentation. The famous shell is not just a pagan symbol, it is a baptismal font, a budding mandola. Mary is depicted there at the moment of her divine birth, but also at her presentation at the temple. The reddish color of her hair even echoes the Jewish rituals of the purifying red heifer. Chapter 3 The Disguised Annunciation. But where is the Archangel Gabriel? Look closely at the blowing figure on the left. It is no longer Zephyr or Adam, but Gabriel himself. His breath is that of God, fertilizing Mary, and Mary resembles nothing of Eve. Her left breast is covered, her hair protected, her posture closed to man, a direct reference to the ancient statues of Venus Pudica. Chapter 4 The Adult Virgin and the Child to Come. On the right, another female figure enters the scene. She covers Mary with a purple cloak. It is the adult virgin, pregnant with the divine. The cloak takes the form of a celestial womb. A strand of red hair, symbol of the divine breath, penetrates the fabric. The divine fertilization is underway. In the collar of the cloak, the profile of a baby appears, the unborn child. Just below, Mary's hand closes the slit of the fabric, a strong gesture. She remained a virgin. Chapter 5 Fish, Swan, Alchemy. But Botticelli goes further. Mary's white robe forms a fish, a symbol of Christ and the new zodiacal era. In the red fabric, one can discern a swan, an allusion to Leda, impregnated by Zeus in this form. This scene evokes a chemical wedding, a stage of the great alchemical work. Christ becomes the philosopher's stone, the Christ lapis of the alchemists. Chapter 6 The Ascension and the Return to Paradise. Above the Virgin, a branch forms a laurel crown, a symbol of her celestial glorification. It is the ascension of Mary and her coronation in heaven. In the leaves, an eye discreetly appears, the eye of God, and just below, the head of the serpent of Eden. Mary has returned to where Eve was banished. Conclusion. With the birth of Venus, Botticelli not only celebrates ancient beauty, he delivers a secret message intended for the initiated, a hidden annunciation, a divine birth, an ascension, a mystical alchemy, a reading where Mary replaces Venus and where art becomes a temple. All right. Now we will look at the symbolism of virginity and fertility. We see the central character with their hair, auburn-colored hair, which refers to the Jewish rite of the red heifer, the red cow. It's a very old rite in which a red mare, so with red hair, was sacrificed. The ash of the mare was used to wash hands, isn't it? With water. You will find all the information you need on that on the internet. And that allowed for purification. It is therefore about the rite of the red heifer. It is part of a purification process for Jews entering the synagogue. And I believe it took place once a year. That's why the female figures of Botticelli in the four mythologies have reddish colored hair, red, and you see at the very top there is a lock of hair that goes into the fabric, the red fabric held by Marie, again, which therefore symbolizes fertility, fertilization. At the bottom, the lower hand of the adult Mary holds a piece of fabric that represents the female sexual organ, but it is closed. There you go. At the top, it is open to divine fertilization. At the bottom, it is closed to man. Mary cannot be impregnated by a man. She is beyond the sin of the flesh, the sexual sin, the original sin. And so she is directly fertilized by God. And in the collar, here in the neck, appears the outline of a baby. Botticelli indicates to us that the Virgin Mary is pregnant with Jesus. Here is the baby, the outline of a baby. There you go. So you have at the top divine fertilization, you have the baby Jesus. And at the bottom, it is closed. It is closed to man. This technique of contour has already been used in another painting by Sandro Botticelli called Palace and the Centaur. We will see that after a while. The symbolism of the entrance, still the same. Through the closed female sexual organ was also used in another painting that is part of the four mythologies, just like this one, of the four mythologies by Sandro Botticelli, in another painting, which is called Mars and Venus. In Mars and Venus, it's also very clear, this woman, Mary, is not accessible to man. That's why in Mars and Venus, she blocks access. Isn't it? Let's see now the technique of the outline. You understood that the outline of the color represents a baby, and this contour technique is also used in Palace and the Centaur. Between the two characters of this painting by Botticelli, called Pallas and the Centaur, which is part of the four mythologies, of the four paintings by Botticelli, you have the outer line of a jar A jar is a container meant to hold wine or water, isn't it? This contour technique, you find it again here. Well, we will now look at the symbolism of the Edda and of the fish. The Edda and the swan, the myth of the Edda and the swan, which is a myth used by Sandro Botticelli in the four mythologies, where you will systematically find a hidden symbol in the fabric of the clothing. You will also find the fish hidden in the fabric of the clothing in the four mythologies. Here, you have a sign that is hidden in the green fabric. At the bottom, in the green fabric, I made a tracing for you. It is a tracing that Italian academics asked me to send them. They needed additional details. So I made the label. You see, at the bottom, you have a sign. I drew an eye so you can visualize the sign better. It's there, the sign at the bottom. Do you see? And here, you also have a female sexual organ, that of Mary, which is depicted in the form of a crescent moon. Crescent moon symbolizing the goddess of motherhood. So the goddess of maternity and of the goddess of maternity, drawn in the fabric and symbolized by a crescent moon. A bush, a climbing plant that symbolizes Jesus. And this climbing plant goes on Athena's head. Here, it is Athena, the goddess of wisdom, but who is also the Virgin Mary. So the climbing plant will crown, which is Jesus, will crown his mother in heaven, in the sky. So the fish. So I will show you the fish of this painting, and then we will go back to the rough fish that I found with an eye. I added an eye. You will see the fish here. These are the two legs, the fabrics of the two legs. And if you pay attention, you will see that you have the gills of the fish. So the respiratory system of the fish on the side of the leg at left. But where it is more evident is that you have the tail of the fish. Look closely at the bottom, follow the fabric, and you have its shape, the tail of a fish. Do you see? With the fish, it's not obvious, but it's there. You see, you go down along the left leg and you clearly see that you have the fish's tail. Okay? There you go. We return to the birth of Venus. And you can see that I added an eye on this gigantic fish. So gigantic that it's hard to guess that it's a fish. And it symbolizes the astrological sign of the fish, which indicates the beginning of the Christian era in the fabric. Red of the cape, where I also drew an eye, what seems to be the head from Leda's swan. And the bottom of the fabric symbolizes the wings of Leda's swan. Isn't it? We return here, and we see that we always find the same devices. You have the swan in green, in the green fabric, right? Everyone can see it, I think now. And then you have the fish. We can clearly see the fish's tail. So the swan symbolizes a divine fertilization. I refer you to the myth of Leda and the swan. It's a nymph who is fertilized by the supreme god called Zeus, thus the Greco-Roman pagan god. And so Botticelli uses this myth that attaches to the female figure. He makes a collage, a mythological collage, to indicate to us that there is a divine fertilization. Indeed, in this painting, you can clearly see that Jesus is represented in the form of a climbing plant, of a bush, comes to crown his mother. A large part, the essence of this painting, which I have decoded. Know that it took me 20 years to decode the 4 mythologies. I didn't spend every day on it, but I have practically decoded all 4 mythologies. And those who want additional information, if you are an academic, do not hesitate to ask me for additional information. I will gladly respond. By the way, I will give you my email. There you go. So if you are teacher, university level researcher, student in art history as well, do not hesitate to make requests. I will respond as best as I can. There you go. Well, are you? Thank you for attending this 4th training session. This is the last workshop on the 4 mythologies of Sandro Botticelli. You will find the other workshops on Pallas and the Centaur, Mars and Venus, the spring, and of course this one, the birth of Venus. You will find them on my YouTube channel systematically. Thank you. See you soon.